All right. Well, I'm going to give folks just a few minutes to join. I know we just opened the doors here for the webinar, but we'll get started here at 1:02. All right. Well, welcome to the beginning of our meeting series for the Washington Cares Fund Rulemaking Project. We're very excited to have you here today and to be kicking off our listening sessions for upcoming rulemaking. I'm Ariel Finney, Policy and Rules Manager with the Washington Cares Fund team with the Department of Social and Health Services. I'm joined today behind the scenes by members of the policy team who will be working on the rulemaking project as well. Today, we'll be focusing on an overview of the DSHS rulemaking project for the Washington Cares Fund. This meeting is to make sure everyone has the information they need to participate in the upcoming meeting series. Some housekeeping before we begin. The Q&A or question and answer feature is available for questions throughout the presentation today. I will do my best to address questions as we go, but please be patient if your question is not answered live. Questions not answered live that are regarding the rulemaking process will be addressed through the Q&A document that will be posted on the Washington Cares Fund website. The chat will be disabled during the presentation, but I will open the chat when we begin our discussion prompts. I've scheduled an hour for us to discuss several questions and go over some information today. But depending on how many people are joining us and the types of questions we have, we may end early, and I'll give some time back to folks in their day. On the screen, you'll see the planned agenda. Our focus today is to share information about our planned approach for the upcoming rulemaking meetings. The meeting sessions will be designed as listening sessions. We expect to provide some information to provide context for discussion, but our hope is to use the time to hear from you on the topics designated for each meeting. Today, I will give a brief overview on the Washington Cares Fund, or as we often call it, WA Cares Fund, to familiarize you with the program. I expect we have varying levels of familiarity with WA Cares, and I don't want people feeling left behind or uncertain about the scope of the program. I'll talk today about rulemaking activities and share information on how to remain up to date with rulemaking communication. We'll talk at a high level about the rulemaking process as well. We have several questions for discussion today to help us understand what's important to you. To me, I feel like that's the most valuable part of the meeting today because I really want to understand how to design these listening sessions to be engaging and also to be hearing your perspective to help us lead our rulemaking project. Lastly, we'll go over some next steps and what you can expect from us on our next meeting on March 27th. So I know it's easy as someone within the program to use language and acronyms that are not obvious to those outside of the program. So before we continue down this path, and I'll probably be bringing this type of slide back in future presentations, I want to take this opportunity to go over some terminology you will hear in the meeting and the upcoming meetings. The Department of Social and Health Services is the lead on the WA Cares Fund project. This meeting series is focused on the work being done by the Department of Social and Health Services. You will commonly hear the Department of Social and Health Services referred to as DSHS. Employment Security Department also has a major role in this project. The Employment Security Department is leading the work on employee contributions. You will commonly hear the Employment Security Department referred to as ESD. Healthcare Authority is the third department responsible for a major part of the WA Cares Fund program. They are responsible for the payment system, verifying use of benefits, and establishing criteria for payment of benefits to providers. You'll commonly hear the Healthcare Authority referred to as HCA. Long-term services and supports, or LTSS, refers to a variety of services and resources to assist people who experience a long-term disability to maintain their safety and comfort. The Office of the State Actuary, or OSA, is working on identifying program solvency and will be performing routine actuarial audits on the program. The Revised Code of Washington, or RCW, refers to our statutory language or the language enacted by the legislature. These are the laws that provide program direction, limitations, and grant permission to state agencies for rulemaking. You've already heard me use the term Washington Cares Fund, but again, we commonly refer to ourselves as WA Cares Fund or WA Cares. I'll talk more about the program as a whole shortly, but you may also see WA Cares Fund referenced as WCF. Washington Administrative Code, or WAC, or WAC, but we often say WAC, are rules developed by government agencies to implement policies and procedures as delegated by the legislature. I'll go over these in more detail today, but our goal for the work in this meeting series is to create a new chapter of Washington Administrative Code for the WA Cares Fund. You may also hear WACs referred to as rules or regulations. Let's continue by talking more about the WA Cares Fund program so you're familiar with the basics. Each meeting, I plan to provide some background information to help us better understand the topics we will be discussing. Today, that background information is going to be focused on just generally what is the WA Cares Fund and why are we here today talking about rulemaking. But in the future, I'll spotlight certain topics that will be leading our discussion or areas that we are focused on for our rulemaking. Washington State's Joint Legislative Executive Committee on Aging and Disability, or JLEC, began a search in 2014 for a long-term care public policy innovation. In collaboration with a broad group of interested stakeholders, JLEC sought to find a solution that would support families with resources to make it easier when a loved one needs long-term care, to provide affordable coverage to workers, to help protect them from impoverishment when they need long-term care as they age, and to protect Washingtonians from significant tax increases otherwise needed to fund Medicaid, the primary public payer of long-term care, to cope with the long-term consequences of our aging population. JLEC spent several years working with stakeholders, policy experts, and actuaries to explore both private and public solutions. After extensive research on each of these approaches, the findings were clear. A program like the WA Cares Fund that covers everyone, similar to Social Security and Medicare, is the only way to provide affordable coverage for all. We also know universal coverage, where everyone participates in the program, is a best practice in public pension, healthcare, and long-term care insurance programs in capitalist countries throughout the world. It ensures programs can cover everyone at a low, stable rate, regardless of age, gender, or health status. With that research and best practice in mind, in 2019, the legislature enacted the Long-Term Services and Supports Trust Act, creating the WA Cares Fund program. In 2021 and 2022, the legislature made improvements to the program's coverage and benefits. Workers began earning benefits in July 2023, and in July 2026, the benefit will become available to those who qualify. So let's talk about how the WA Cares Fund can help. WA Cares is a universal long-term care program in Washington State. It's an earned benefit, which means you can contribute for a certain number of years to qualify for benefits. It's entirely self-funded from worker contributions, which go into a dedicated trust fund used only for this program. Workers contribute 0.58% of every paycheck to WA Cares. You can see here what this looks like for the typical worker who makes just over $50,000 per year and would contribute $291 each year, or $24 per month. You only contribute while you're working. Contributions stop when you retire or if you become unemployed. Everyone is covered at the same state rate, regardless of pre-existing conditions. When it comes time to claim your benefits, there are no copays, no deductibles, and you never need to file a claim or pay upfront for services. Instead, we connect you with contracted providers for the services you want and pay them directly. Contributions to the program began in July 2023, and benefits will become available in 2026. Everyone who's contributing to the WA Cares Fund more than 500 hours per year is earning benefits, part-time and temporary workers included. By contributing for a certain number of years, you earn access to the $36,500 benefit. There are 3 pathways to meeting the contribution requirement. The first is early access. This is for workers who have not yet earned lifetime access, but have a care need while working or soon after leaving work. To qualify, you need to have contributed for at least 3 of the past 6 years at the time you apply for benefits. The next is lifetime access, and this is the pathway we expect the majority of Washington workers will use to qualify for benefits. To use this pathway, workers must contribute for 10 years without a break of 5 or more consecutive years. Finally, we have a special pathway for people near retirement. If you were born before 1968, you are likely near retirement as the program begins and unlikely to qualify for the 10-year pathway. In this case, you earn 10% of the full benefit amount for each year you work. For example, if you work and contribute for 500 or more hours for 3 years, you'd earn 30% of the benefit amount, or just under $11,000, and this would be adjusted for inflation. Another example, you could work 500 or more hours after contributions start in July and retire at the end of 2023, and you'd still earn 10% of the benefit amount. Near retirees will have permanent access to whatever percentage of the benefit amount they earn at any time they need care. They are also able to qualify through one of the other pathways if they meet those requirements. Once workers meet contribution requirements and need help with at least 3 activities of daily living, they can get access to a $36,500 budget for services and supports. The benefit will increase over time with inflation. With WA Cares, workers get the flexibility and freedom to choose the services and supports that meet their needs. That could mean in-home or residential care, but could also include modifications to make their homes safer, and assistive technology for things like medication reminders and fall detection that can help with some care needs. WA Cares is designed to help people age in place in their homes as long as possible. That's what most all of us want to do, and most of us can if we have the right supports in place. WA Cares has many options to provide support for family caregivers. You can choose someone who would otherwise be caring for you on an unpaid basis to get training and be paid, even your spouse. WA Cares can help lessen the impact on family caregivers by paying them for their time or making sure they can get other support services. Under current law, you must be a resident of Washington State to use benefits. However, the Long-Term Services and Supports Trust Commission, which oversees WA Cares, has recommended to the legislature that benefits be made portable for people who contribute but leave the state before they need care. WA Cares is a cross-agency program, and multiple state agencies have responsibilities in designing, developing, and implementing the program. Right now, as contributions begin, you might need to reach out to the Employment Security Department for help with an exemption or opt-in application, or as an employer for premium reporting. In the future, you will likely interact with DSHS as you apply for benefits and get a care needs assessment. The Healthcare Authority also has responsibility for paying providers, and the Office of the State Actuary is responsible for ongoing actuarial analysis to make sure the fund remains solvent. The program is also guided by the Long-Term Services and Supports Trust Commission and the Long-Term Services and Supports Council. The Commission makes recommendations to the legislature and the agencies about specific sections of the statute, and they recommend changes to rules or policies to improve the operation of the program. The Commission monitors agency administrative expenses and has an investment strategy subcommittee that provides guidance and advice to the State Investment Board on investment strategies for the WA Cares account. The Long-Term Services and Supports Council determines annual adjustments to the benefit unit up to inflation to ensure benefit adequacy and solvency. So with that brief overview of the WA Cares Fund program, let's discuss the rulemaking process and why we are here. This is the first meeting in a series of meetings where we hope to receive input from the public. Our goal is to hear your ideas, input, and ask questions of you about topics we are drafting rules for. These discussions will help us recognize and integrate the values of our audience into the rules and understand areas that may need more focused attention. In this meeting series, we will focus on topics such as approved services, beneficiaries as it relates to application for benefits, eligibility, and assessments, providers as it relates to registration and operational standards, and general provisions such as definitions and the governance structure. Along with DSHS, our partners at ESD and HCA will be conducting rulemaking activities along the way. We plan to work closely together to coordinate our rules where they overlap to reduce burden on those interacting with the WA Cares Fund program. However, our scope in this meeting series is focused on DSHS topics only. For information on ESD and HCA's rulemaking, please go to their websites and sign up for rulemaking activities. I will have those resources available at the end of this presentation today, so please stay tuned. I will be dropping those in the chat. You can find the ESD's current rules under Title 192 WAC under the Long-Term Services and Support section. Since ESD began managing contributions in 2023, many of their rules have already been finalized to prepare for their go-live in 2023. HCA also plans to begin rulemaking, but they expect to begin in 2025. You can see our meeting schedule outlined here. We may schedule additional meetings as needed if specific topics require more time. If additional meetings are scheduled, this would occur after the July 17th date. You can find the schedule, including topics for each meeting and registration links on the WA Cares Fund website. I will be sharing this link in the chat here shortly, but if anybody wants to take note of that now, the website is wacaresfund.wa.gov/rulemaking. And again, I will have that in the chat here shortly. I ask for each of you to verify as you have time that you are registered for the webinars that you are interested in participating in. To do so, go to the WA Cares Fund website and register for each webinar you want to attend. These are not scheduled as a meeting series, so you will need to register for each one separately. In addition, please verify you are signed up for DSHS rulemaking notifications in your GovDelivery account. We will use this mailing list for notifications about future rulemaking activity and meeting announcements. You can update your preferences by visiting the WA Cares Fund website and signing up for updates. On your screen, you'll see the types of email updates you're interested in. Please make sure that DSHS rulemaking box is checked if you want to continue to receive updates about DSHS rulemaking for the WA Cares Fund program. On the screen, you'll see a brief, simplified version of the rulemaking process. It's never as straightforward as this, but my hope is to give you an overview so you understand what we are working towards and where we are within the process. To begin, we must identify authority to draft rules. I'll talk more about this in the next slide, but in essence, the legislature must grant authority to the department to write rules. We must be allowed in statute to draft rules to kind of expand on what's listed in the statute. Once we identify our authority to draft rules, the department will file one or more notices with the Code Revisor's Office, informing the public of the intent to write rules. This allows the public to provide feedback or input on the rulemaking process. Next, we engage with stakeholders to understand the impact and audience for rules. This is what we are doing now. That is why we have this meeting series, because we really want to be aware and hear from our audience the impact of these rules. We begin drafting rules while integrating the input from stakeholders. This is not necessarily a linear process. We may draft, receive feedback, draft again, depending on the circumstances. Once the language is in a finished draft and supporting documents are compiled, the proposed rules and supporting documents are filed with the Code Revisor's Office. This starts the public meeting or a public hearing and public comment period, where the public can provide feedback on the drafted language. From there, we will respond to feedback by making changes or explaining why a change was not made. If a change is made, it will be reflected in the final language. If not, an explanation will be provided in the supplemental documentation. The final language will be filed with the Code Revisor's Office, and then the Washington Administrative Code will go into effect. These are the WACs we see and use on the state legislature site. And our goal in this meeting series is to work up to having a chapter within WAC for the DSHS Washington Cares program. As I mentioned previously, in order to write rules, we need to be given authority by the legislature. For the WA Cares Fund, the authority is granted to us under Chapter 50B 04 RCW, specifically RCW 50B 04020. This statute outlines the responsibilities of each department involved in the WA Cares Fund program. DSHS's responsibilities include determining an individual's status as an eligible beneficiary, defining and identifying approved services, registering and deregistering long-term services and supports providers, and dispersing payments of benefits to long-term services and supports providers. This is how we identified what rules we will be developing. These are broad topics and may be added to over time as the program goes live and we learn what else is needed. Our goals for the meeting series are to engage with you and hear the values of our communities. We hope to generate ideas, think of things from different perspectives, understand the impact of rules for different populations, and receive input to help guide our rule development. We believe this is a critical component to creating equitable, user-friendly rules that beneficiaries, providers, and others who interact with the program can navigate to find clear information on how to participate in the program. Meetings will be focused on specific topics. We'll be focused on DSHS rulemaking activities, and we will not be engaging on topics covered by the Employment Security Department or the Healthcare Authority rulemaking activities. This allows us to maintain focused discussions. We will be listening carefully to the discussions. We will be giving presentations and asking prompts. We may also ask follow-up questions or clarifying questions to better understand ideas being shared. We will use the information shared in the meetings to help us draft rules. While not all feedback may be seen directly in the final language, we will consider the ideas generated and make informed decisions on the pathway. We will share information in the WA Cares Fund website. This includes slide decks, recordings, and resources. We will also communicate through the rulemaking mailing list. All right, well, thank you so much for hearing about the background about WA Cares and why we're here today. Before we begin, I'm going to pause to see if there are any questions I can answer about what we've covered so far before we open it up for discussion. While we're doing that, while I'm pausing, I am going to be opening up the chat feature, and we will be able to start our discussion portion of this meeting. All right, our chat is now open, but I'm not seeing any questions about the material covered so far. So moving forward here, again, we have chat as a feature to be able to engage and answer the prompts that I have. If you would like to unmute, please raise your hand. I will unmute you based on the order in which hands are raised. You'll be limited to 2 minutes for sharing to ensure there's time for everyone to be heard. All right, my first question for you all, please put in the chat, please share your name, organization, and topics you're interested in related to WA Cares. Great, thanks, Rebecca, for using the chat. Um, I see interested in rules related to waivers. Can you share more about what waivers? I believe that might be regarding a different program, but I'm certainly interested in hearing more and I can help you find the right person. I also see Lindsay saying interested in portability, and Jessica's from We Care for Walk Care's Coalition, interested in all topics. Alexis, also from all topics. All right. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to move to the next question. If you've not participated yet, please feel free to introduce yourself and let me know what topics you're interested in. My next question is, what do you hope to experience during the upcoming meeting sessions? Right. Yeah, so Rebecca, I think you might be right about reaching out to the Employment Security Department for that. I will have the link to their website here in the chat shortly. And so you're welcome to reach out to them and see if they can address the waivers. I do see a question coming in our Q&A regarding, will the upcoming meetings be the only point of providing input and feedback at this stage? I'm certainly happy to receive feedback via email or a phone call directly to me. My hope is that the upcoming meetings provide a shared space for us all to dialogue and chew on it together, but certainly I will accept feedback directly to me as well. I do think the upcoming meetings will be helpful as we will be presenting information and kind of, explaining some background leading up to certain topics, but I recognize we all have very busy schedules and may not be able to make it to every meeting. So my contact information will be shared here at the end as well. You're welcome to reach out to me and share any information you want me to have. All right, and I see a response to the question up on the screen. Alexis is looking for opportunities for substantive input and review. All right, wonderful. Well, I'm certainly very interested to continue to hear what you're hoping to experience. As I am, planning and thinking through these meetings, I think that can be really helpful to know what the audience is hoping to gather. I, of course, will be coming with a set agenda and certain goals to get, specific topics addressed. But it's always helpful to know, the value of the audience. My next question for you all is, what do you want the DSHS Walk Cares team to learn from you? And while you're thinking about the question up on the screen here, and please feel free to use chat. My hope is that I'm not missing any hands raised. And if I am, please let me know. I did get a question in the Q&A about the next step after this round of listening sessions is to release a draft rules or the CR 102, and whether or not we have a timeline we're working towards. Our hope, while we're covering a number of different topics, they will likely move at different speeds based off of, some are much deeper than others, much more robust. Our hope is to have some draft language ready to go by fall of this year, maybe even summer of this year. A lot of that will, really be driven by our listening sessions and what we hear, what we need, what we're considering as we're drafting. But our hope is to have some language starting to be finalized towards the end of summer and fall. I do expect certain topics potentially to go into 2025, just again, given how big they are. But we're still working on some of those details. Again, a lot of that will be driven by what we hear in the listening sessions. Right. And I see Katie commented, gaining understanding of the discussion and consideration behind the rules and how they are able to be interpreted. Wonderful. I'm certainly interested, I think likely each of you here in the room, I don't think I've heard from everybody, but I think each of you in the room are likely bringing in a very helpful background that's going to help us understand more about the impact, about, the unique perspective of different, different workforces, different beneficiaries that are going to be utilizing the service. So my hope certainly is to be able to learn from each of you as we go forward. I certainly am not somebody who believes that I know everything about everything. So I definitely will be looking to you all to be sharing your expertise in our discussions to come. So my next question is, what do you think is important to keep in mind when drafting rules? All right, and a few comments in the chat. I think one may be responding to a past question. Would like DSHS to understand how small business owners are affected. That's wonderful to hear. Want DSHS to learn from stakeholders what is reasonable and real-world impact of rules as they are considered and iterated. Key to keep in mind not only intent, but impact from other perspectives. Yes, I think that's a big factor in my mind is best of intent, but also we need to recognize the impact, and hearing from you all on that impact is going to be helpful. I see robust opportunities for feedback and review, ample time between steps to be inclusive for all populations. Yes. For average citizens, understanding the rulemaking process, what kind of things can be included, addressed, how rules are written, and so on. Wonderful. All right. I'll leave this question open for just another few seconds for anybody who's finishing up typing, and then we'll move on to our resources. All right, so I see another comment: when drafting rules, the employee should be considered first, what helps them the most, and how best to communicate with them. Wonderful. Also see impacts of rules on the various people, providers, entities interacting with WACARES. All right, well, thank you so much for participating. I know we have a fairly small group here today, but it really means a lot to me to hear, again, the values of the audience here, how I can be learning from you all, and what you're hoping to see in the upcoming meetings. And that will really help me hopefully draft the right agenda for us moving forward and the right form of participation for you. So as I promised earlier, I have some resources. I'm going to be putting these in the chat for you. My hope is that you will be able to take these, keep them somewhere, and you refer to them in the future. These, I think, will be very helpful resources for everybody who wants to follow along with DSHS's rulemakings, ESD's rulemaking, and HCA's rulemaking. You can also, if you have just general questions about the WACARES Fund program, the best place to turn to is our wonderful customer care team at WACARES. You can reach them by emailing wcares@dshs.wa.gov. That's dshs.wa.gov. They are very helpful in answering all sorts of questions. We're not sure who to turn to for, do I go to DSHS? Do I go to ESD? Do I go to HCA? They're a really great resource to help direct you on that. So feel free to reach out to them if you have questions after today. So our next steps will be to provide any updates through the DSHS rulemaking mailing list. We will be preparing for the upcoming meeting on March 27th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So please make sure you are registered for that webinar if you want to attend that. We will be covering approved services. I do expect approved services to be to cover two different meetings given the breadth of that topic. And so we'll start with that on March 27th at 2 o'clock. If you know someone who you think would be interested in participating in this process, please share the resources mentioned in this webinar so they can be informed on opportunities to participate in the rulemaking process. Please feel free to share our DSHS rulemaking website that also has links to the ESD and HCA website. It has our information about signing up for email notifications. It has our registrations for upcoming meetings there. So that's really a great kind of one-stop shop right now to get caught up on rulemaking activities for the Walk Cares Fund program. So please share. I certainly hope that those who want to participate in rulemaking can be here in the future. I think that's really, the power of the people here makes a good rule. So I'm very excited to be kicking that off. That brings us to the end of time. And as I said at the beginning, we're ending a little bit early, and I think that's just great for today. I really appreciate your time and attention today. This has been a great start to the meeting series, and I'm even more excited to hear from each of you moving forward. Hearing it, who's in the room already, the backgrounds that you're bringing, who you're representing, the values that you have and what you're hoping to get, really has just already energized me to move forward in this meeting series and hear more. So please reach out to me with any questions. My email address is up on the screen here. It's Arielle, ARIELLE .Finney, F as in Frank, INNEY 2 as in the number 2 at dshs.wa.gov. I will be the point of contact for any rulemaking questions, but really my hope is to limit it to rulemaking questions. The general questions about the Walk Cares Fund program, again, really should go to our Walk Cares Fund customer care team. They're a really great resource and they really know what they're doing over there. So reach out to wacares@dshs.wa.gov if you have any general Walk Cares Fund program questions. So with that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to continuing our discussion on March 27th at 2 o'clock.